You want some candy? Dehydrate some pineapple, whether you use fresh or canned. Dehydrated pineapple makes a wonderful natural candy. Your kids are gonna love it, you're gonna love it, so let's get started. Now what we have is our pineapple. As you can see, I have 2 pineapple here that are of obviously different ripeness. We're gonna work with what we've got because we can still use these. They're still gonna be great. So what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna go ahead and chop the top off my pineapple. Actually, what I'm gonna do is I prefer using a bread knife. I think it works better for me. It cuts through better, at least mine does. Oh, this is not the best pineapple. See, it's a little bit overdone. I know better. Cut the bottom off. Nope, that's a bad pineapple. Well, maybe we won't be using that one. Yeah, there we go. That one was a little too far gone. We're going to work with this best we can. Okay, these are still not great pineapples. So let's go ahead and just go and trim this down. I'm going to try not to waste any of the flesh if I can possibly help it, but it happens. Now, how do you pick a pineapple? Here's some tips. The pineapple should look good, not tired. The leaves should be green. The skin should have a slight give. It should smell like a pineapple, and it should feel heavy for its size. Some people will take their pineapple and cut it down this way, then cut the cores out. Some people use a core. There is a pineapple core that you can use to cut this, and it will take the core out for you. It's just whatever is going to work best for you and what you have. Okay, the next thing that you can do is just make some really thin slices, as thin as you can get them. The thinner the better. Here are some other things that you can do with the slices. You can choose to take this core just like this and come through here and just pull this out. I think this is a pineapple core where you can just core the entire thing. It releases just like this. Now, if you can get it thinner than this, that's your goal. You want to get a super thin piece of pineapple. This is probably more of along the line of what you need. Super, super thin. You can see here this woody core section. We're going to go ahead and just cut it apart and we're going to save it. Don't throw it away because you can use it in a different way. I'll show you how in just a minute. But I'm also going to cut up the pineapple in a couple of different ways just within the slices. I can do thin slices for larger pieces, or I can do smaller pieces that are much like what you find in the cans of pineapple you get at the grocery store. These small segments that will work as well. Do this however you like, whatever way you prefer to eat them. Try it a few different ways if this is your first time so that you can get an idea about what you prefer when you eat them. For us, doing canned pineapple is easier on chewing because the fibers have already been broken down some and we find that we like those better, but you may prefer fresh because you just prefer the taste of it. So if you're like my youngest son and I, we can't eat fresh pineapple because we're sensitive to the enzyme that's called bromelain that you find in pineapple. It creates an unpleasant tingling sensation on our tongue, the inside of our cheeks, and the soft palate. It is removed when you can pineapple with either commercially or home canned because of the heat. Now, if you're really adventurous, you can take your leftover pineapple skins and brew them for a tea. That can also serve as a skin tonic for refreshing your skin. You can also brew this, fermenting it to create tepache, which is a pineapple beer. Now, don't waste this juice. You can actually save it as long as it is 100% pineapple juice that was used to can those pineapples, and it makes a refreshing drink. Cheers. I also save the juice in the freezer. I'll just pour it into my silicone mold here, and about every 2 squares of this particular mold equals about 1 ounce. What you can do with this is use it to marinate chicken, to use for any kind of thing that you want to use fruit juice for. You can also use it in dehydrating. Apples, bananas, and other fruit that tend to oxidize when exposed to air need some kind of acid in order to help stop that oxidation, and pineapple juice works for that. It doesn't work as well as lemon juice, but it sure tastes better. Now what I'm going to do is just pop these into the freezer. Can you put anything on it to flavor it up? You can use all sorts of flavorings to put on your pineapple. Test something out that makes sense to you. Allspice, black pepper, chili powder, cinnamon, curry powder, cardamom powder. Then you can use some ginger, some tahini, or even Worcestershire powder. Use that one pretty sparingly because it can be potent, but it really tastes great. Also use something like molasses powder that has the brown sugar effect that is used a lot when you're doing grilled pineapple. That'll work too. So what time and temperature do you use? Okay, we have here fruit, 135, 57C, and we have fresh cut, fresh slice, fresh core, canned slice, canned cut, and canned tidbit. We'll set this for a temperature of 135 for a time of whatever, because we're just going to let these dry until they're dry, and then we hit start and go. Now, one big tip I have about this that I cannot stress enough: let this cool off before you test it to see if it's done. The thing about sugars in a dehydrator is that they get warm and fuzzy and just kind of spread out and are just so pliable and soft. And you're not going to be able to tell whether your fruit is actually dry because it's just going to always feel bendy and soft. Let it cool off. This took about 15 minutes, and then you can know whether it's actually done or not. What's it look like when it's finished? First bits, first slices, first pretty slices, canned rings, canned chunks, that's what that is. And these are the cores that we dried. These can be powdered to make an ingredient in a rub that will help tenderize your meat. And then these are the pineapple tidbits. How are you going to store it? Now, to store these, you simply need an airtight container. Whether you use, a canning jar, whether you use a reused glass jar that you get from the grocery store with food in it, whatever you have that's airtight. Usually, fruit lasts about a year in the pantry. You may get longer, but the problem with fruits is the sugars tend to start affecting how the fruit stores. It may turn dark over time. You may find that you get, kind of weird taste in it after a while. And now I want you to see the difference between fresh and canned. This is canned, this is fresh. This is less tacky than the canned is because this has more sugar inherent in it because it was stored in juice. This is just fresh. There's the difference in color. They both taste great. They're both awesome. Now, kids, what are we doing next? Those of you who've been around for a while know this part of the step. This is conditioning. You want to put these into a jar and you're going to shake them once a day, every day. Set them down, shake them once a day. They need some room to move, okay? What you're looking for is if you turn the jar over and things stick to the top, well, that one didn't stick. If it sticks and you can easily shake it off like that and it comes off, you're fine. It's sugars, it's compaction, and sometimes it's static depending on how fine it is, like a powder. But if it comes off like that and it shakes off, it's fine, okay? Go to the next day, keep turning it, checking into what it does. If you find that you turn it over and things stick, or they stick together in one large clump and they're not easily broken up by a shake, put it back in your dehydrator. Now, if you had this in your jars and in the 5 to 7 days that you do this, you find mold, you have to toss it all because it's where you can see mold here, it's likely already growing here. Now, should we do anything else to these when you're storing? That's totally up to you. Most foods don't need anything else. You don't need to add anything else to them. If you'd like, you can add a moisture absorber. You put it in, and this I do recommend with fruit or powders if you're going to store for a while or you're in and out of the jar a lot and you live in a very humid environment. Now, if you decided that you wanted to go ahead and vacuum seal this, it's not recommended that you use oxygen absorbers with foods that have either a high fat content or a high moisture content. If you're drying your fruit properly, it shouldn't matter. But you can go ahead and do something like vacuum seal it. What I would do for vacuum sealing is for short-term kind of things. I've got this handy dandy vacuum sealer. Just slide it on, turn it on. And we have a seal, okay? And like with all food storage foods, you use your ring to keep your lid on because if ever this were to fail, it wouldn't matter because your ring is on, keeping your lid tight to your jar, it is still an airtight environment, which means you're not going to get the exchange of air in and out. Now, if you want to learn more about dehydrating fruit for fruit snacks, for lunch boxes, for the kids for the summer to teach them how to dehydrate, watch this video series right here. And until I see you again next time, happy dehydrating.